What's up, everybody? Welcome to Ripstop on the Record. This is episode 44. And I want to start out with a little riddle for you all, okay? Which is...
Sweet.
Good, you're close. What is supposed to be sharp, but normally isn't, gets used a lot, but changed not enough?
Needle.
My humor.
It's katanas.
First answer correct. Needle, which is sort of my way of segueing the episode. Today we are re-airing episode 11 with Aron from Capital Sew and Quilt, talking about sewing machine maintenance and technology and upgrades and things like that. So if you already listened to this one, listen again because he says some super important stuff. And if you've never listened to it before, then congrats, because you're going to learn a thing or two. But check in for more sewing machine tips and things like that.
So it wasn't katana?
As for some industry updates and things,
Tip of the week.
Thanks, Isaac. My tip of the week is for you to listen to this episode.
Yeah.
Is that yours? You have 3 or 4 banked tips of the weeks now.
Yeah, that was one of them. Listen to this episode.
Okay, so I still have mine for the week. Okay, cool. As for some industry updates, what do we have?
So recently I was like on Instagram just scrolling as you do, and this company called Fish Ski Designs popped up. So Fish Ski Designs makes like bike bags and stuff like that. So I bought this thing that's like it goes near your stem and it holds 4 beers and it like goes over the top tube of your bike. And I just thought it was super rad, and it has like purple X pack and all kinds of stuff. So shout out to them, making some really cool stuff, and I'll probably buy more, except for everything sold out in like 5 seconds. So if you want to get something, you got to get there fast.
Clarification, these are closed beers being carried in the fish ski bag.
Yeah, they're closed beers.
Yeah.
So like instead of having to have like a cooler or something that you strap to the back of your bike, it's like a convenient place to hold them that also is like near the center of gravity. So it carries them better. And some of them are insulated, which is also really cool. Yes, I'm not endorsing, nor do I believe that Fish Ski Designs is endorsing popping 4 of those beers at once and trying to drink them while riding your bike. Don't do that. It's probably illegal and unsafe, maybe fun, but not good. Don't do it.
Yeah, don't do that. Also, after 43 long episodes, Avery's finally recording in person with us.
I made it.
You're
What
here.
up?
I have arrived.
Fully in studio. We have all this rad
This is a
gear.
really long drive.
Seriously.
I walked here.
Also, so as a lot of you have known for a while, we've been talking about trail days quite a bit, and we have some spotlight gear. So if you didn't make it to the event itself, then now you get to see some of this gear in our studio here, like this prototype from Almond's Right, which is made out of UVX40 and some monolite and some DCF as well. A lot of cool stuff. This custom printed cutaway from Nashville Pack, this brand new designed ultralight movement pack from SWD, as well as some other things. So Trailblazers was a huge success. Thanks to everyone that came out and saw us at the booth, and thanks to these great companies for sharing some of your gear with us.
Yeah, speaking of trail days, industry news kind of, we got the opportunity to look at the Osmo tent from Nemo.
Oh yeah, it
And,
was really cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. There's like 2 different variants, right? Like a heavier one and then like a...
There was like their elite version, which is like a 10D or something, 15D, and then there's like the 20D.
Yeah.
I really liked the color of the like olive one.
Yep.
Like the regular Osmo. It just looked really cool. The Ripstop was sweet, but yeah. Tipping.
Speaking of new products, is CSM Polyester. Now, products team, most people don't know what CSM Polyester stands for or means or what it would be used for. Give us the elevator pitch.
Well, I can say this on the podcast because it won't be on the product page, but it's formerly Hypalon. So
What's Hypalon?
maybe more people know what that is, but basically it's like a rubberized synthetic material that's really thick that people use for like the bottom of bags. You probably see it a lot in like EDC gear and even backpacks that you would just see in most stores. People also make like zipper hoods out of it and zipper pulls. And so we're going to also do some of those things, like some different like CNC cut zipper pulls and stuff like that. But it's an awesome reinforcement material, and it looks really nice for places where you want to add like a little bit of an accent.
Features include non-skid, high temperature or high heat tolerability, high chemical, chemical resistant,
Super waterproof.
Super waterproof, super abrasion resistant, and obviously incredibly heavy if you put all those things together. But really cool accessory fabric.
CSM also stands for something like chlorosulfate,
Monolate.
something.
Chlorosulfonated polyethylene.
Hey, I was close.
Monolith.
I had to pull it up.
Yeah. We just put DCF on the website, so hopefully when you're listening to this, there's still more available. However, it's being released the day this podcast is released. So on Wednesday, May 25th, depending on when you're listening to this, it may be gone. But we are rooting for you, and they're working to get a lot more out very soon. So we'll get recurring shipments. So go check it out.
That is the 1.0 DCF and the 143. So hopefully you get some.
On to the pod. Joining us is Aron. He is the manager of Capital Sew and Quilt. Aron, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Aron, tell us a little bit about Capital Sew and Quilt while we have you here.
Well, we're a dealership. You walk in the front door, and we start our service immediately. We're a service center for sewing machines, but we're also an education center and a sales center for top of the line and pretty incredible machines.
I love that. One of the first things you mentioned right away is an education center for people. That is so much a part of what we do and why we're really excited to have you here, because we want to give just a little bit of education to those people at home with their sewing machines on how to use their machines and what to do with them. But first, how did you get into this job? I mean, it's maybe not something that a lot of people have heard of.
So I'm third generation. My dad has a sewing machine store, and my grandpa had a sewing machine store, and my grandpa had a sewing machine store before him, and they just kind of passed the knowledge down. And we were a sewing machine and vacuum store. So I actually started as a vacuum technician when I was about 10 years old, and just kind of worked into sewing machines and just grew up around it. And here I am, 21 years later.
That's awesome. That's so cool. So it was largely something that you were around from a very early age.
Yes, definitely. Yep. I've seen a lot of sewing machines.
That's awesome. So all of your knowledge, like you said, has just come from being immersed in it in your everyday life. That's how you became a pro.
Right, exactly. But I mean, I've also been through, Brother. Brother's just one of the brands that we sell. But I've been through technical trainings as well. But the majority of the knowledge that I have it was all passed down. Just passed down through my dad and some YouTube. YouTube's great.
I love that. So what machine do you work with personally? Is it one certain type or brand, or do you work with many different types of machines?
We're pretty much home machines. I sell Brother brand, Elna brand, and Juki. Juki is like a long-standing commercial. You guys probably are familiar with the Juki. I saw on your website some industrial-looking machines. I couldn't tell the brand; it was kind of a side profile, but yeah, the Juki is, gosh, they're an old industrial company with some really, really, really nice products.
Yeah, we often have people tag us in pictures of their sewing machines and ask questions, and there's resources online as well, like Reddit, and Juki is probably the top 2 mentions of sewing machines. It's gotten really popular, and even more so with people making their own gear just because of how industrial it is and what it can handle as far as sewing.
Yeah, definitely. They have a really good reputation for that. And there's a following for them called the Juki Junkies. So they're definitely very popular. But so is Brother. I mean, Brother's got some technology that would blow your mind if you saw it. Cameras, literally, there's cameras built into their machines now. When you're doing embroidery logos and stuff like that, you can scan in your fabric and see it on the screen and almost get like a print preview. You can see an embroidered design on fabric before you stitch it out. Projectors project designs and stitches down onto the fabric while you're stitching. It's absolutely crazy. Coming from old Singers and Kenmores and old white machines and stuff like that to now, you wouldn't have believed it 20 years ago.
That is so cool, man. You're giving us the extra deep dive that we don't even get on our side normally. That is so awesome. As somebody that looks at machines frequently, you could say, For somebody looking to buy one, we have a lot of beginners, people are getting into DIY. What are some features that you would tell somebody just like, hey, these are things that you want to look for in a machine that you're looking to buy?
Well, it really depends on your budget. Some people are going to be working with, the $100, $200 budget. Some can be in the thousands. In the entry level, in the very entry level, you want to keep it simple, because a lot of machines in the $100 to $200 price range, you're either going to get technology or you're going to get metal. And I don't think you're going to get a good mixture of both until you get to about the $400 to $500 range in a sewing machine. So in entry level, keep it simple, not a whole lot of bells and whistles. If you want a machine that's going to work long term and be able to sew through some thicker items.
So dig into even a little bit more if you're able there. You said you can either have technology or you can have metal. Would you just expound on that a little bit further?
Well, I'll give you an example. So the machines that we sell, I'll take Brother, for example. Brother's done a really good job because they have been able to keep a $100 machine on the shelf, accessible to somebody who has a limited budget. Let's take it back 30 years ago. A good home sewing machine, which is going to be simple in technology, was about $300. I mean, for a good, solid machine that was nice metal, is going to last you 20 years, it's about a $300 machine. Now, fast forward 30 years, and you think about the way things have gone up in price. How do you keep a machine in a $100 price range? You got to sacrifice on some of the more expensive materials, the metals and things like that. So, you pretty much you're going to get a lot of plastic in the $100 range. Is kind of what I'm getting at here. Without trying to sound discouraging to it, because they're good machines. You just can't maybe go through the thick layers and stuff with them as much in the entry level. That's kind of what I'm getting at there. Does that make sense?
Definitely. No, I think that helps clear it up. And I like what you said in terms of that doesn't necessarily make it a poor machine. It just depends on where you're ranging, what your range is and what you're looking for.
Exactly. Because, it just depends on what you're going to be doing with it. If you're going to be sewing lightweight fabrics and stuff like that and kind of just keeping it simple, those entry-level machines are going to be great.
So what are some features of a machine that you might advise people to stay away from, if any?
So features to stay away from. That's tough, because my job literally is to show you features that you're going to love, right? So I'm a salesperson at heart. So when I look at a sewing machine, I'm wondering what you do and what feature I can show you that's going to just kind of make you say, "Wow, I want that machine." Some gimmicky things, anything gimmicky. So Brother made I love Brother. So let me just preface this by saying I love Brother, but they made this cartridge machine where you could put your thread into a cartridge and then slide the cartridge down, and it essentially bypassed the normal threading of the sewing machine. But it was gimmicky and it didn't last very long. So anything gimmicky that just seems a little too good to be true, I would kind of maybe stay away from.
Well, that makes sense. One question we get a lot from people is they did start off with the $100, $200 machine, and they're looking to upgrade, and they don't know if they should upgrade to like a heavy duty or something more in the jukey range. So what is a piece of advice that you could give to people who are looking to upgrade and don't know if it would be worth it or what to upgrade to?
Okay, yeah, fair. Well, I'm going to sound biased here, but as a dealer, I think you should go to a local sewing machine dealer, somebody who's been in the business for a while and has gone through their fair share of machines. So as we're a family-owned business and we like to develop relationships. So we have gone through and made sure that we're going to sell you a product that you're going to love. It might not be as cheap as some other places, but we've made sure that it's going to last, and we've tested them. And so when you're going to upgrade, go to a local dealer, somewhere you can sew on their machines right there on in the store. We actually encourage people to bring fabrics in. Please sit down at our machines, test them out. I can show you I can run you through the gamut of sewing machines. So that's my advice, is to go to a local dealer.
That's great advice. I actually didn't know that you could test drive a sewing machine like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Come on down.
That's a really good example, a really good point. I think a lot of people would understand in our realm, maybe like a pair of hiking boots or running shoes that you're going to want to wear before you try. And a lot of people that buy what we sell here, Ripstop by the roll, are people that are sewing weekly or daily even, right? And you're using something that much. You probably want to get a really, really good feel for what it is and how it's going to work first. Definitely.
You want to like the feel of it. If it feels clunky, if you don't like looking at it for, hours upon hours a day, you definitely want to try it out before you buy it. And a local dealer will offer that. as well as warranty stuff. You know, if your machine breaks down, you want to have someone that is going to be accountable for it. You know, you don't want to have to box it up and ship it back to a large company. When you buy local, when you buy through a dealer like us, we have an on-site service center. So if you have a problem, we're going to take care of it.
That's a great point. Not one that I've honestly thought of too much either. So one thing that we see a lot with our users, a ton of people have these old 1950s, these full metal, these older machines. This is something that just came to my mind. What is it about those machines that make them so durable, make them so loved? I can't tell you how many people have been like, oh, you know what? I've bought new machines, but let me tell you, the one that my grandmother passed down, that's the one that I use all the time.
I don't know. I mean, the answer is definitely just the materials that it was made in the simplicity. There was so much metal, steel that they were using and stuff like that before the lightweight aluminums. And because of how heavy duty and heavy that they were made, they had a certain feel to them too. It's a little off topic, but I ride motorcycles, and I like the feeling of that metal Harley Davidson. And I don't know if it's the same way with these sewers. They just enjoy this old kind of nostalgic feeling. But there's something to those. Those will always have a place in my heart. I love the new technologies, but man, the old machines were really cool. They're what I learned to repair and so on. So good stuff. I like those old machines.
Would you say that the older ones are also easier to repair because of all that steel and the more dense metals that they have?
Yeah, they're going to be simpler. There's going to be consistently less wrong with them because there's not a lot to go wrong, right? So with new features comes the potential for things to go awry. The nicer machines that you get. So I know I've got machines that start like kind of the $500 to $600 range and go all the way to $20,000, right? And you don't want to spend a ton of money on something and just having it break down on you. So they're made very reliable. I don't want to say that they're not, but the new machines. But the older machines just didn't have as much to go wrong, right? So, I mean, typically you're going to expect lower repair bills with an older machine.
Interesting. A lot of people, typically from my experience, seem to be a little scared of the older machines. I think maybe because, it's probably the technology generation where like there's always a new iPhone, there's always a new model of a MacBook. So they're like, oh, if it's newer, it's better. But that's not necessarily true, correct?
Yeah, no, it's you get people in two camps. You get the people, I don't want that new computerized machine, and then you get the people that are like, I really love these new features. And we could do an entire session on just, new sewing machine features, because there really are some incredible things. One-handed needle threaders, not something that you have to really, really be actively involved in to even focus on threading the needle. It's just push-button needle threaders. And a big difference between old machines and new machines, something that you would want to look out for when you're buying a new machine, is the feed dogs. The Ripstop fabric can be a little slick for some of the older feed dog systems. Some of them were rubber, some of them had very short little spikes on them. The new machines are going to have a diamond cut, in Brother anyway, they're going to have a diamond cut 7-point feed dog system. That's going to allow them to feed things a little bit more accurately and keep things from slipping as much. Where the older machines had like a 3-point feed dog system. So if you lifted the foot and looked at them, there's only 3 points of contact on some of these older machines where it would actually be pulling the fabric through.
And is that something that you could replace in an older machine and upgrade?
You can't upgrade. I can put new ones in, and it might add a little bit of sharpness, but not something that you can upgrade. No.
Okay.
You can upgrade. It's going to be the new machine.
Yeah.
It's going to be the new machine upgrade.
No, that makes sense. I didn't know if you could just replace the piece of the feed dogs to, like you said, something more similar to the 7-point versus the 3-point that you were mentioning that the older machines have. Yeah,
well, then you would have to replace the needle plate too, because you've got you've got the feed coming up through the plate, so the feed dogs would have to match the new needle plate, and so far nobody's come up with an upgrade. Hey, for anyone listening, that might be a good idea. Come up with if you got a CNC machine, maybe you could come up with an upgrade kit for the old sewing machines.
I think that's a great challenge for people, because especially in sewing and working with textiles, a lot of people don't like to just like throw away things. They want to make it better and figure out a way to make this old machine work even in 2021. So even though it's been maybe 70 years that the machine came out, but I think there's still a time and a place for every machine, obviously.
Yeah, definitely.
What are some common problems that you see in machines, or the most common problems that you see?
Well, the most common problems that we see are generally a lot of user error, a lot of threading. We help people out. If somebody brings a machine in and they're just like, what's going on with our machine? And I see that their needle's in backwards, I'm going to turn their needle around and I'm going to say, that's what was wrong. And no charge. That's a lot of what we see is a lot of people that, they'll either have their needle in backwards or their thread won't be in the take up lever. Which is a very, very common issue if your thread is bunging to the back. I use an acronym, TNT. If your machine is messing up, it's TNT. It's threading or thread, needle, and tension. Those three things, check those three things before you do anything else. Keep it simple.
That is a fantastic acronym, and I think one that a lot of people will identify with and appreciate that are listening for sure. So to that end of the question that Avery asked with problems that you see, are there ways that people could take better care of their machines? Or as somebody that sees machines on a daily basis, like I said, like yourself, what are people not doing? Is it cleaning? Is it dusting? Is it replacing the needle? How can we take better care of the ones that we have at home?
Yeah, changing your needles more often. That's going to make sure that your stitching, your seams look better. Making sure that you're matching the needle point to the fabric that you're using is very important. Cleaning your machines, definitely, depending on whether you have a vertical, more industrial bobbin system or a horizontal bobbin system or an oscillating bobbin system. You want to be removing those bobbin cases, getting behind there with lint brushes. I don't recommend using canned air unless you know what you're doing with it, because what you can do with canned air is kind of blow the dust back into the machine. And a lot of our machines now are so difficult to get apart, you can't get that stuff back out, and it kind of will get in between teeth of gears, and it'll get in places that it doesn't need to be. So anytime you can brush or vacuum the dust out of your machine, you're going to be better off than if you use canned air.
I see. That makes a lot of sense. So I think just to reiterate for anybody listening, it's kind of like a removal of that dust instead of just dispersing it in the machine.
Right. And when we do it, we actually pull all the covers off. So of course I have a big air compressor back here. It saves me money and buying little canned air cans and stuff. But but when I take all the covers off, there's nowhere for this dust to go but out, right? So I blow them out in the back. But if you don't have your machine taken apart like that, you're just going to blow the dust back into the gears and into the mechanism of the machine. So I would recommend to use like a vacuum cleaner or just a little paintbrush or something to get the dust out.
Sure, that makes a ton of sense. One of the most common questions we get, maybe weekly, is just, hey, what needle and thread should I use with this fabric? We've put different guides out there for different fabrics, but is there a way that you think of your own side or what you tell people and kind of a method or template system for being like, hey, this is the needle and thread you want to use for this weight, What do you recommend to people for that?
I knew you were going to ask me this. Okay. This is something that, I don't do a lot of sewing, right? I'm more on the machine end. I have employees here that could just talk to you all day about this. But my recommendation, and I guess all the packs of needles on my wall, if you look at the back of them, it says, oh, it's for this fabric. And so that's a helpful guide that most of them are going to, our needles are going to tell you what they're for. The larger the number, the larger the eye of the needle. And so that it can kind of accommodate a thicker thread. A mistake a lot of people make is just because they're going through something thick, they tend to use a needle that's too large, pokes too big of a hole, and actually, I know this might sound crazy, but a needle's supposed to break when it's dull. It's the thing that's supposed to break, right? If you use a needle that's so large that it can't break, and you have like kind of a more entry-level machine, it's actually going to be harder on your machine than if you were to just use a smaller needle.
That's really interesting.
Does that make sense?
I think so. I'm going to reiterate that just to make sure I understand and everybody else gets it. In a way, you want the needle to break so that you're not driving something that's not supposed to fit through your machine. Is that right?
Right. Because if you got this big, thick, like finishing nail of a needle that you're using, just trying to go through some denim, and that tip dulls, not only are you not going to be getting the best stitch that you could because you got a dull needle, but then it's it's not breaking because it's so huge. And so you're pushing this dull needle through the fabric, putting extra wear and tear on your machine. I know it doesn't seem like much, but over a long term, it can actually kind of wear your machine out a little bit.
I see. That's super interesting. Yeah, I definitely haven't thought of that way before or thought of that specifically. So that's really helpful to know. That also kind of makes me feel a little bit good. At one point, I was in quarantine and I was doing a lot of sewing and I snapped like 2 needles that week. And I guess in a way that at the time I was thinking like, oh man, like I'm doing something wrong. I just keep snapping needles left and right. I was definitely doing something wrong, but also maybe that wasn't as bad as it could have been if I was using a massive needle.
Right. Exactly. Now, something that was that actually one of my employees told me today, and I didn't realize this, but the size of your needle can make a difference on synthetics. So on Ripstop, you're going to want to use something really sharp and a little smaller. Like you don't want to go past like a 75/11, maybe an 80 or something like that, because I guess the synthetic fabrics don't heal like a cotton fabric would. So when you puncture a hole through a cotton, eventually that hole will actually kind of heal a little bit. The fibers will kind of relax and kind of fill in the gap that you just made, where it's not so much on synthetic fabrics. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I didn't even know that. We were just kind of having a conversation about that before I got on this call with you guys.
I think that's a great piece of advice, and I think that's one thing that we try to recommend to people. I think the Smetch Microtex needle, something really sharp, but I actually have a 2-parted question for you going off of that. 1, how do you know when to replace your needle? And then 2, do you have a rule of thumb of how often you should be cleaning and dusting your machine?
Well, first let me start with, yes, the Microtex Schmetz, that's exactly what you need to use. So that was perfect. That was especially for those synthetics and nylon fabrics and stuff. So as far as when to change your needle, there's not like a hard and fast rule, because there's a lot of different factors as to what dulls a needle and what warrants replacing it. But on some fabrics, it'll be as simple as you're just sewing along and you'll start to hear a popping sound. It doesn't sound like it's not just piercing the fabric cleanly. You'll start to hear it. Being around it, I can almost hear it from across the room now. But when a needle needs to be changed, or when a machine's about to start messing up, so sometimes you can hear it's just not sewing cleanly, and sometimes it'll be that the machine will just be skipping stitches every now and then, and to change the needle. But I've heard anything from 6 hours of sewing a needle should last to I change it every project. There's no hard and fast rule for when to change your needle, unfortunately. I will say this though. It is cheaper to change a needle than to mess up your project.
So true. I also think what I was taking away from the not hard and fast rule there is something you can definitely rely on is do it more frequently than you already do. That seems like
exactly. I had a lady, bless her heart, it was the sweetest thing. She came in and she was having problems. Her machine wouldn't stitch, and I asked her when was the last time she changed her needle. And she says, "Oh no, my husband just sharpens them for me." Her husband was taking the needle out of her machine and actually taking it back and sharpening it. When she got it to us, the tip had been, there was probably 2 millimeters missing off the tip where he'd been sharpening it. She'd been using the same needle for, I cringed to even think about how long she probably used that needle. But how cool was that though? He was that. Isn't that awesome?
What a great guy, right? That's what we want. That's what everybody wants. Somebody willing to sharpen your sewing machine needle.
Also wish someone could invent like a system for the needles, kind of like toothbrush bristles when the color changes halfway down and you need to get a new toothbrush. If someone can come up with a color system for people like me who just need a little more help in direction of when to do that.
That is really smart, actually. Wow. Well, yeah, I mean, because and they could do that too, because they've got these. I'm sure you've seen titanium coatings and stuff like that.
Right.
The titanium coated needles. They could easily do something like that. Although it's like because you want the titanium coating to last.
That makes sense.
Better at dispersing heat, and it doesn't gum up and stuff like that. But if they use some sort of paint on theirs, I don't know. But that's a great idea to have a color system for the needle.
Well, maybe there's an inventor listening, and if you make my idea, I just want like 20%.
No, honestly, 20%.
And then your shop will be the first shop to sell these machines.
Absolutely.
Or sell the needles.
And if they do that, that will be the number one selling needle everywhere. So I think 20%, you're going to be doing pretty well.
So do you have any other advice for machine users, something you want to let them know, maybe a question you answer often or something you see happening a lot in your shop?
Yeah, well, it's kind of something that a lot of people don't think about. But if you pull the needle plate off of your machine and you look in between the feed dogs themselves, a lot of time lint will build up in between those feed dogs, and it won't allow the feed to come, the dogs to come all the way out of the plate. So if you're noticing that your machine's not feeding fabric like it used to, you can look in between your feed dogs once you pull the plate off, and you'll pull out this wad of stuff on a lot. I mean, it just depends on how often you use it, but that can actually keep the feed dogs from rising off all the way out of the plate. So that's definitely a place that most people don't look, is in between the feed dogs when they're cleaning. Just cleaning more often, just clean your machines more often. We do full factory tune-ups here. So whenever you bring one in, we do, we look at everything that they would look for in the factory when they were trying to resell it, basically. Some people offer what we call the blow and go, as a tune-up. We pride ourselves in, we slow down and we take a very holistic look at the machine to make sure everything's good and recommend any sort of, wear items and things like that.
Awesome. So if someone is like a hobbyist sewer and they're sewing on the weekends, they're probably not sewing every day because they might have a full-time job.
Right.
But how often would you recommend someone to take their machine and actually get that full tune-up? And then also, if you could give us like a range of price, so maybe people could compare to make sure that they're paying the right price for that.
Right, yeah. So every manufacturer in a home machine recommends you do it yearly. You take it to your local dealer and have that tune-up done yearly. I've seen it range from, kind of the really small guys that all they have is the overhead for their, for their little, machine shop, and they can start $60-$70 and go up from there. Our factory tune-ups start at $99 and go up. So it's kind of anywhere in that $70 to $130 range for a basic machine. You're doing pretty good. As long as they're doing a good job, you feel like it's better when it comes back.
No, awesome. That's a great recommendation and a reminder, because not something that I was aware of, and I've been sewing for quite a while. So I think everyone that starts sewing needs to listen to this, because I've been going at it for 10 years and I don't want to tell you how many times I've changed my needle.
Right. And you're amongst good company there. You're the amount of people that don't bring their machine in often enough. There's a lot of people, but they're happy with their machine still. You don't have to get it serviced every year if as long as it's a good machine and you're keeping it clean. But if you want to extend the life of your machine, ultimately you'd want to get it looked at more often.
Absolutely. So we have a couple questions here at the end just to wrap it up. We've used your time fully already. So one thing that we debated, one thing I was asked last week, what is a lightweight fabric? What is a heavyweight fabric? So for us on our side, our lightest fabric that we carry right now is right in the 0.5 ounce range. And that goes up. Most popular fabrics go up till the 6 ounce. We do have like a 13 ounce, and there's a few more above the 8 to 10 range, but that's in general where we are. Is that synonymous with what most people see as light to heavyweight fabrics, or do you see even a wider gap than that?
No. Can you give me a comparison? What would I compare your 13 ounce, like your thickest fabric? What would I compare that to? Let's just say in terms of like, would it be like a canvas?
Yeah, it'd be close. Our 13 ounce fabric is a moto denim by Dyneema, or with Dyneema. So it's a very thick, just denim weave fabric.
It depends on the, how many layers you're sewing through. And it also depends on, the machine. Some machines will laugh at that, they're just going to just sew right through that. No problem. Other machines are going to struggle. And so, but as far as like a home machine, okay. Yeah, that's a pretty good range. I'd say that's what most people are going to run into.
And then this was a question from our general manager Carter here. He just wanted to know, he was excited to hear from you. He just wanted to know what are some of the coolest features that you see in the shop right now? What are coming out in sewing machines? What's just really intriguing that's coming out?
Well, like I said earlier, the projection technology where before you stitch, the machine will actually project the stitch onto the fabric in the exact size and position that you want it, so that you can just kind of follow it as a guideline. Also, if you're making kind of modifications, you're like, oh, I want to see what this stitch would look like if it was a triple stitch and it was 4 millimeters long versus 2.5. You can actually see and make those changes right on the fabric and see it before you stitch it. Brother is kind of,
oh wow,
yeah, it's really cool. That's on the Brother XP2 Luminaire. That is a really, really, really cool machine. So you have, you got anything from, this built-in projection and cameras to, just something as simple as just a one-touch needle threader, or scissor button, where you can, when you finish your seam, you can touch one button and it'll actually trim your upper and lower thread for you without you having to pull the fabric out and manually trim it. So the built-in trimming feature is really cool. 7-point feed dogs, diamond cut feed dog systems, built-in walking feet. Those are really cool. So if you're having problems with your later shifting, there's a lot of machines that'll actually have built-in even feed systems. So instead of just feeding the fabric from the bottom, like most machines do, these actually have a system built in that mirrors the lower feed on top. So you've got 2 feed dogs pulling the layers evenly, and so your seams and everything match up better. Your fabric doesn't slide as much.
Awesome. I think my next question you might have actually just answered, but one question we get and have gotten a lot in the past week is about walking foot machines. So my question was going to be, what is a walking foot machine good for? And then how does that differ from a walking foot attachment where they sell the lead attachment, you can change out the foot and just change it to that walking foot?
No, this is an awesome question. I love this one. So because I sell I sell multiple machines that have even feed systems. So when you put a walking foot on a machine, the needle bar actually drives the mechanism. It's got a little arm that hangs off it and drives that mechanism. And what that does, it's just it looks just like a set of feed dogs, but all it does is it puts pressure down from the top, but the lower feed still drives everything. So it's like a floating feed dog that can apply pressure on top, right? But the lower feed still drives everything. And so when you put a walking foot on a machine, and for those of you listening that have done this, it turns your machine from a sound level of 10 to all the way up. it turns it into, it sounds like a tractor. But what that's doing is it's pressurized. It's helping, but it's not as effective as when an engineer creates a system that mirrors the exact movement of the lower feed and builds it into the top. So you've got 2 sets of feed dogs simultaneously pulling the top and bottom layers of fabric. And then what's cool is when they do that, then there's modifiers. So you can modify how fast the top one is moving. So if you still, even with an upper feed system, still are having some issues where you had to ease in the top or ease in the bottom fabric, you can modify it to slow down or speed up that feed to be even more accurate.
That is so wild.
Does that answer the question?
Yeah. No, I think that's a great answer to the question, because one of the things obviously is like a walking foot machine. Obviously, you're the guy to answer this. They're pretty pricey, and obviously a few more $100 maybe than a regular machine that you can add that walking foot attachment to.
Right. Yeah, you can find walking feet on Amazon for $19, $20 or something like that, that you can bolt right onto a low shank or a high shank machine. But yeah, to get a machine that has got a built-in upper feed system it is expensive. Not so bad if you go commercial and you just do like a walking foot from Juki or Conso or like one of the more industrial companies. But if you want something that's like more in the home market with that built-in even feed or that built-in feed system, it can be really pricey. Worth it though. I don't want to say it's not worth it. It's definitely worth it. You should totally come by and check it out.
To that end, Aron, Avery and I we're building this fun list of people that we need to go visit. We get to talk to some of the coolest people in the industry, from people out in Colorado and Idaho. And I think we have to add you to this list, but you might be the most likely person, seeing as you're just a couple miles away for us. So we're going to have to come to Capital Sew and Quilt.
Seriously, come on
We'll
back.
bring you some of our fabrics so you can see those as well. But Aron, for people that are listening, where can they find you, and what information do you want to share with them to know about Capital Sew and Quilt?
Yeah, so we're on Facebook, Facebook, Capital Sew and Quilt, capitalsewandquilt.com. We're in the process of, expanding our online business so that we can bring some of our machines to sell online. So yeah, we're here in Cary, 107 Edinburgh South Drive, Suite 111. Yeah, that's definitely come see us if you're in the area.
Awesome. Aron, thank you so much for your time today. It has been fantastic to talk to you. I've learned a lot, and I think everybody else listening can say they've learned a lot as well. We're really appreciative that you spent this time with us. Thank you.
Well, good. Yeah, no, it's my pleasure.